Okay. So so far what we have seen is how to create controls, right? We have seen how to create a field control, how to create a data set control. Now, once you create a control, we have also used the quick deploy process using this deploy solution file. But as I've said earlier, that's only for your testing purposes, but you should use your main solution, and solutions can be unmanaged, solutions can be managed. So depending on where you're actually deploying it. Let's say I'm creating a control for a PCF gallery or for community, or I'm creating a solution as an ISV, right? I want my solution to be a managed solution, not unmanaged. So those are the things that you should be looking out for. But before we get started with this solution piece, I wanted to cover how you can do this deploy without solution file, which is, I'm going to rename this in the next version. I'm going to put it as quick deploy, but let's call it as quick deploy for this presentation. So if you're going to do a quick deploy, you would always want to have authentication profiles created. Okay, so authentication profiles were newly introduced by Microsoft, and what they do is you have to create your profiles on your local machine. So it authenticates, it creates a profile on your machine um, to specific environments using specific user IDs. Okay, so how you create it. Now, what I did with the tool is whenever you load the tool, it reads the authentication profile that are created on the system, and then you can have multiple authentication profiles, and one of the authentication profile is your current profile. So as you can see here, it shows current authentication profile, and then I've deleted my profile just to show you guys how you need to create it. But if the profile is not found, then it will just show no profile found. But you can have multiple profiles, and then one of that profile is your default or your current profile. So when you go to authentication profile, you can go to list profiles, and then there are commands that comes out of, so here it says no profiles are found on this computer. So there are commands that comes as part of the framework. So this is one of the command that says pack auth list. Now pack auth list, what it does is it lists all the authentication commands. So I've not written any code other than executing the pack commands. That's it. And then pack command does all that magic. So similarly, you go to create profile, and then here is where you would type in your CDS environment URL. So my URL is going to be this. I'm going to copy this URL, paste it over here, then hit OK. Now what it's going to do is it's going to run this command called pack auth create, and then it has this option of URL, and then it passes the URL as the parameter. And then what it does is it then brings up this sign in page for you. And then if you're new on your machine, like if you don't have an account, you can just use another account, but I already have this account created, so I'm going to pick that, and it's going to ask me for the password. So let me enter my password. Okay, and that's it. So now what it's doing is it's going and authenticating the it's validating the connection, then it connects to the developer environment, and then it connected with that specific user to this specific instance. Now if I go back to authentication profiles and say list profiles, is going to run that pack auth list command, and what it does is it so what Microsoft's Power Apps CLI does is whenever you run this command, it actually gives you this kind of output. So what I'm doing as part of my tool is I'm reading this particular output and then parsing that data out to show it in a nice UI format where it says this is the index, if it is current or not, what is the environment URL, and what is the username that is associated. Now I can have multiple. authentication profiles. You can even delete authentication profiles, or you can even change your default profiles as well. So let's go and uh, create one more. So create profile. I'm gonna give this one more URL. Okay, so same thing, just goes and creates. Now this is my logged in um, single sign-on URL, so it didn't actually ask for any password, and it just connected to that environment without any passwords because it's a single sign-on. Now if I go to list pack auth, sorry, pack auth list, then I see two. Now as you can see, the one that I created last becomes my current profile. I can always switch. So I just have to highlight this and then say make current. And then this will current, and yeah, so it will close this current window, run this command. So now the command to change the authentication profile is pack auth select, and then it passes, it asks for the index number. So that's why I was showing the index numbers over there. So if you see here, list profile, it shows the index number. So this is index 1, this is index 2. Now index 1 is current, and if I make index 2 as my current, then it passes the index 2 as the parameter, and then my new default profile becomes my index 2 profile. Okay, let me go back and then make index 1 as my current. Now there are some issues that I found out that whenever we change anything, the current profile is not shown here. So that's on my part, which I'm going to fix in the later versions. But let me go and close this and then reload the app. So it should show me the current authentication profile. So everything is running asynchronously. So even this PCF CLI version, NPM versions, this current profile, it runs asynchronously. So you don't have to wait until everything loads. But yeah, as soon as it loads, it just shows up here. So this shows the default authentication profile that is available on this machine. Now, once you have this, only then you can use deploy without solution or quick deploy function using pack PCF push command. So that's one way of doing your deployments. Okay. The other way of doing your deployments is actually creating a CDS project. Now, CDS project, think of this as you're creating a solution, right? But when you're not actually creating a solution file in CRM, but rather you're creating that XML kind of looking file um, in a code, and then you're adding references to your components in that solution file. So when the solution file is actually generated, it will contain those components which can be deployed uh, to CRM. So how you do that? Okay, so you you put your solution name. So what I do is I normally take the control name, and then I'll add solution, then my publisher. Okay, and then my publisher prefix would go in here. Now, once I say create, what create is going to do is it's just going to create a solution wrapper. So let us first go and look at how the data looks like. I mean, how this folder structure looks like. So in the folder structure, you have this PCF project. And you go to character counter demo. Inside that, you would see that there's nothing right now other than index file, control manifest, this generated, and CSS. Okay. Now, how I have structured my tool is it would go and create the solution file underneath this path. I'm going to change that eventually. But this is how it works today. So if I go and say create, it will go and create a solution folder. So it will create a solution folder over here in character counter demo. Then it will go and initiate the command, which is where is the command? Oh, there you go. Pack solution init, and then pack solution init is initialize the solution. Remember the command that we execute for component creation. Component creation is pack PCF init. Pack PCF init is what we are saying to the pack command is initialize um, my PCF control. Whereas for solution, it is pack solution init, where we are specifying that initialize my solution um, project. So when you do that, it would create this folder. So this is make dir command is running over here. Then it creates a folder. Then inside this folder, it creates this CDS project. Okay. And then inside this, it has this customization or relationship and solution XMLs. These are the same kind of format that you would have seen. So anytime you export a solution file from CRM and then you try to extract the contents out of it, you would see that there would be these three files always in there, right? So same thing, but it's just that those are files not packaged into a solution yet. So now let's go and so now the second step is that you add the component. So you add this component to your solution file. So to add that, you have to click add component to solution, which executes another command called pack solution. And then instead of init, now you would say add reference. So pack solution add reference. Reference to what? Reference to my control. So path, and then you define the path of your control. Then it would determine what that if it has that control or not, and then it would just add that control to your solution. Okay, so yeah, so project reference successfully added to CDS solution project. Now let's go and check out the project. So if you no. Yes, so only the solution reference is added. So if you go and edit, should see, oh, not solution, sorry, customization. It still doesn't show up here yet. I think it shows up after you build it. Okay, so let's go and build it. Okay, so let's go and build it. So what build does is it will build the solution, not the custom control project, but your solution project, which is called CDS CDS PROG. And it will go and add the control here, which will show up somewhere. It's still running. Now, whenever you're building a solution, you can build a solution either in your deployment mode or in production mode. So that's how you determine whether your solution that is going to be built will be unmanaged or managed. So if the mode is deployment, then it would be unmanaged. And if you're not selecting this checkbox, then default is always unmanaged. So this is succeeded, and then you can see here it processed entities and all those stuff, and then it also processed this component, and it took this component from here and then added it to the solution file. So now if you go here to your bin folder, to your debug folder, you would see there is a solution file over here, and if you go inside it, you can see there is a control for control with that specific prefix. So this is thing to note. It would always add that prefix to your control, even though you have a namespace and you have a control name. So what it does is it would put a prefix underscore your namespace. Then because it's a namespace, then it gives a dot and then it adds the control name. So similarly, if you see here, prefix underscore namespace dot control name. Okay, this is how it would also show up in CRM as well. So now your zip file is created. You can either deploy this zip file manually into your instance. Let's say you have an on-prem instance, or if you're not able to connect to your instance using XRM Toolbox, you can still use the tool to create the control. And then once the zip file is created, you can deploy the zip file to any instance you want manually as well. So you're not limited. So we are not using most of the XRM features. The only XRM Toolbox feature that we are using is only on the deploy. So if you're not able to connect to your instance, you can still use the tool, and then you can just copy this zip file and then deploy it manually as well. But because we are connected to the instance here, so we're just going to say deploy directly from here. So now it's going to import the solution package in CDS and then publish the contents of that solution.
Yeah, this is where I don't know what I messed up, but when I did this, not the deploy, after the build, I saw a zip file inside the bin, but it was totally empty. No customization XML, nothing, but the zip file was created. The components were not added, but I swear I did click on the add components to solution. So something I messed up. Just sharing the experience for others. No, just in case if you see an empty solution, just delete and recreate.
Yeah, you can always do that. So
Yeah.
you can always come here and then say, okay, something messed up. I don't want this solution anymore. Or you want to change the name of the solution, let's say. So let's say I don't want to call this character counter demo solution. I want to call something else. So I can always come to this particular location and then delete this file. Did I hit yes? Delete. Yes. Why is it not deleting?
Is it
Oh,
somewhere in the middle of the process?
yeah. Cancel. Yeah, it was. It's been used right now. So you, you know how actually I'll show you again. So I was trying to import this. Now, whenever I'm trying to import this solution, in my instance, it says it fails, and it also shows me the error. So it tells me that the custom control with the name with the same name, Power Maverick dot character counter demo, already exist on that particular instance, but with a different prefix, different publisher. So that's because I was using this deploy without solution, and then I was using a different prefix. So that's why it's not able to deploy. So let's go and try to delete it first. PM test. Okay, so I don't want to remove it from here. So you know how I tried to remove the control from here last time, and then it just deleted even though there were dependencies. So let's see if there are any dependencies first. So that's a bug right now on this new UI, that control is not able to do the dependency check, and it just deletes it without even checking for dependency. But let me use the old interface for now, because if you, I tried to do this and then it deleted the control, but the control was used on a form, and because it was used on the form, now forms XML became invalid. So now my form was not usable at all. So I had to delete that form and then recreate a new form. So it's, you have to be very cautious when you're deleting a control from that new instance as of now. Let me just go and delete from here. Yeah, there are some dependencies. So let's go and remove those dependencies before we delete it. Where have I used it? don't remember where I have used it.
I think phone number.
Oh, right. Yeah. Um, was it phone number?
I think
Yeah,
it was rich text, right?
it was. I don't remember where I added it. So let's just add a different control. So let's just create a different control. Um, okay, so this is one of my other control that I have, which is also available on PCF gallery. So I'm going to use this.
Make sure you don't have it already.
No, that shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Okay, so this is let's build it one more time. So same thing. Here already the solution exists, but yeah, you can create a solution, add solution a component to the solution, and then you build it. Once you build it, then a solution file will be created. So now we can just go and deploy it once it succeeded. So build this. Now there are some quick actions that I've provided here as well. So now you can build and test your control in one click. You can build all the projects. So let's say you did some changes and you think that your changes are good enough and it was a very minor change. Now you want to build both the projects, build component project as well as solution project. You just click this button and then both the commands will be executed at the same time. Then there's one called is build all and deploy. What it do is you do the changes and then you save the changes and the changes were good, but now you want to build your component, build your solution as well as deploy it. So this would do all in one click. So now this is succeeded. Let's go and deploy. And now it's publishing. While it's publishing, oh, there you go. So now this solution is deployed to Dynamics CRM. So let's go here and refresh our solution list, and then you can see that the solution was deployed here. Okay, if you go inside it, you can see there would be one component only for that one single custom control. Okay. For some reason, my internet is slow today. Okay, there you go. So that's my control. Yep. Now I want to delete this control because I don't want it anymore. And because it is unmanaged solution, if I delete a solution, the control would still exist in your system. So that's why I wanted to delete the control as well as the solution. So I'm going to delete the solution. Now what I'm going to show you is, so going back here. Now let's open this. So you have this solution file created. You went to bin, you went to debug, and this particular solution was modified right 7:28 p.m. This solution is your unmanaged solution. Now, when you do a build with managed, which this checkbox checked, it would run the command with the build mode as production. What that means is your solution will be unmanaged. Your solution will be of type managed, and when you go to the folder, it won't be in the debug folder, but rather it would be in your release folder. So in the release folder right now, what I have is I already have a solution file, but that was last modified at 6:11 p.m. I'm going to go and build this solution again. Now here you can see, okay, I just missed it. Let it first run because it will keep on scrolling. So once it completes, I'll go and show you what that command was, and where do we specify whether the build was of type development or whether the build type was of production. Yeah, and as you can read through this, you can see that it's adding that bin/release folder as well. It's referencing that. And then it also tells you here that the solution file was generated and what is the location of the solution file. So it shows you here that it was in the release folder. So now let's go and look at the command. Oh, too much scrolling. Yeah, so here it is. So what I did is before I try to do a rebuild, I'm trying to do a restore so that if there are any packages that are not yet included, then it would also include those packages and then try to rebuild the project. But the project rebuild configuration, I'm putting it as release. If you don't mention this, then it is always in the debug mode, which is your development mode. Okay, so that's the only change. When you put configuration is equal to release, it creates the package in the release folder. This is the same thing that how Visual Studio works today. So Visual Studio uses this ms build commands, and that's why we need this Visual Studio batch file to run those commands, because ms build commands are associated to Visual Studio. And if you remember initially when first first session when we discussed about why we need this control location and why we need this Visual Studio command prompt location, I did mention that we actually need this only when we are dealing with the solution files, and this is the reason because we're using ms build commands. Okay, so now this was created in the release folder. So again, you can either manually go in that release folder, copy the solution file, and then deploy it manually if you want to. Otherwise, you can use the deploy feature of the tool, and then this would get deployed to your instance. But the only difference would be now it would be a managed solution versus an unmanaged solution. Deployed. Let's go again here and then refresh. And then now you can see that the package is a managed type package. Okay. Good thing about managed type packages, as you know, you don't have to delete the components. The components gets deleted themselves when you delete the solution. So it's easier to maintain. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Well, yeah, that was all that I had in terms of deployment. So I want to open up for any questions or anything that you have come across you want to discuss about solution. Before I have few things that I was still want to discuss about solution, but I want to take a pause right now and then let's discuss about anything around solution or components, and then we'll continue with whatever things are left off.
I have a question, Danish.
Mm-hmm.
Assume we have a control, say suppose test analytics will take this control itself, and assuming it takes couple of input parameters, that is something which we are supplying from the form control form properties when we configure it, and then if we have to change the control and constructor name, that is instead of text analytics, I want to name it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the form, and it has been used at like say suppose 5 to 6 fields, and it is taking a couple of input parameters as well. Now the control is in the solution and in the dynamics with the name text analytics. Now the control is still same, all the feature and the property, everything, but I just want to change the control name to something else and deploy. In this case, should we have to reconfigure all the properties and everything that we have configured? Or is it possible to update the existing control with the updated name so that we don't have to go to the form properties and change all the configurations?
So I have not actually, so I have ran into that issue, but I haven't actually
Mhm.
gone and configured the control on the form. So I've not completely followed whatever scenario you're talking
Mhm.
about, but let's do it right now.
Okay.
So let's go.
Uh, I think we might have to add a input property, I think,
Yeah, we
in
have
the
input
manifest.
property.
Okay.
This text analyzer has the input property in it.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't just work because it needs a specific key from
Mhm.
text analyzing key and everything, which I don't have
Okay.
it right now. But we'll just see it would error out at least, right?
Okay.
So let's go edit on the form. Okay, and description is where I want to give this.
Yeah.
Rest everything is not required. Okay, let's go on one of the account. Okay, account custom. Yeah, so it won't load because it
Mhm.
doesn't have the key and everything. It's fading over there. But it does show the error. So it would show well because it was an invalid URL. It was not able to construct this, right? So let's now go and try to change the namespace.
Yeah.
And what else do you want to change?
The constructor as well,
Okay, the constructor
because the
as well.
constructor is the text analytics.
Right. So I'm gonna give this name as Maverick PM Text Analytics. Okay. Save it. Now once you save the namespace and then you save the constructor, you have to make sure that you go and delete the generated file. Okay. Then you go to the tool here, do a reload so it reads the new namespace. It didn't read the control name though. Oh yeah, because that would be an issue here. But let me see if I can work with this. I cannot actually change the name of the control right now in my package
Mhm.
because there are some constraint with the name itself. But let's just change the namespace. Because it's
Okay.
reading the path and everything, so I cannot actually change the name of the control. But now let's build it. Once you build it, it will create the generated file again. So this generated file will again get regenerated. Yeah. So it was succeeded. Now, and you don't want to change the solution, right? You want to keep the same
Yeah.
solution.
Yes.
Just build a solution, right? Okay. Yeah, I normally do rebuild because then it cleans and then rebuilds the solution so that you always get the fresh, you know, content in your solution file. Succeeded. Now let's go and deploy. Let's see if it errors out or not. And before it deploys, and I should have done that before I deployed it. Oh, should have completed deployment. Oh, there you go. It created a duplicate control. It created a new control. It didn't updated the same control.
Okay, which means then we'll have to reconfigure.
Right. Yeah, if you're changing the namespace, then the control name would be different. I don't know why it's not showing the name though. Yeah, but it created a new control. So if you go to testing again and then go to that form, you should see another control called text analyzer again. So you should have two controls rather than being one because the namespace changed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So here you see two controls. One would have, yeah, it doesn't show the namespace here, but one is for your uh, the namespace that I had earlier, maverick.controls, and the other one would be for Power Mavericks dot controls.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Thank you,
what I
Ganesh.
have done is before I went to configure it, I found out that I needed to change the namespace and the control name. So I've not really followed what your scenario was because I didn't even deploy my control. I created it, but before deploying it, I realized that I should change my namespace and my control name. So I did that before I deployed it. This just happened last week for that
Okay.
for the data
Uh,
set I created.
yeah, my scenario was we have built a control more generically and we have given a generic name, but the client wanted something specific to them. Actually, it should be with their name and something that makes them feel like it's their control. So now it has been used across 15 to 20 places and it's taking about 5 to 6 input parameters. Renaming it would be again, we'll have to do all the configurations.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And not only that, like if you have used a control, so these
Hmm.
are the things that I wanted to point out. So let's say you used a control, you didn't change the namespace or you didn't change the control name, but you thought of changing the prefix. So you
Okay.
know how I was getting that error because the control, whenever it creates that control, it creates
Hmm.
that with prefix underscore namespace dot control name, right? Then
Yeah.
uh, because the control name is this control name is your power maverick
Hmm.
dot controls dot text analytics. That's your control name, and then it adds prefix to it. But that prefix is actually because of the solution, not because of the control. The control's name is actually this combination of namespace and control name. Now
Yeah.
when you deploy it with a different prefix, it it tries to look up the control in that specific instance with the same name, and it finds it, and then it says, oh, I'm able to find a control with the same name but with different prefix, so I won't be able to deploy this. So those are the things that you should be looking at as well when you're trying to change the properties of the component or change the properties of the solution itself.
Okay.
Okay. Other thing that I have seen initially, I haven't encountered this because I normally use my tool to create controls nowadays. So initially, when I was using these commands, if you don't change your version of your solution, and if you
Hmm.
try to deploy it, the component does not actually update.
Yeah.
That so that's why I had to add this increment versions automatically as part of my tool is because of that particular reason. So every time you build a solution or build a component, the versions are getting incremented automatically, so you don't have to worry about it when you actually deploy your component into an instance. Make sense?
Yes, Danish.
Any other questions, guys? I see Varun joined today, late, sneaked in.
Sorry about that, Danish. I was late to join. Actually, my call got a little stretched.
Yeah, that's fine. So we actually covered authentication profile, Varun. I don't know how much you caught me explaining about authentication profile. So that was in the initial 15-20 minutes, I believe. So you can always look at the recordings about it.
Yeah, that's what I missed. I was like 15 minutes late, so probably that's what I missed.
Yep. Okay, so few updates, and I noticed it yesterday when I was going through the Microsoft document. The document has updated, and this I think that this happened this morning. I don't know when it happened, but so some of the things that got added was dataset is now available on Canvas app. So dataset, you can create a dataset component for Canvas app. It's available. There are some restrictions on creating dataset components right now. So they have specified here. Yeah, so some of the dataset API methods are still not supported on Canvas app. So you can always look at this documentation to so that it would specify which ones are available and which ones are not. So if you can see here, available will show you if it is available for model driven app and Canvas app and specific. Okay. Yeah, so as you can see, some of the methods are not still available, but you can now create custom controls for dataset in Canvas app. And also there were some changes on the navigation as well. Like you can see resources only had like community resources, but then they grouped it into different sites like community forums, feature ideas, and community resources. And now this community forum is, I've shown you this. If you go to the tool and then you go to here and you go to forums, this forums will take you to the same site, which is this site. And then every time any updates happen, then Microsoft keeps on updating or announcing those changes over here. It's for all developers, so it's not only for Power Apps component framework, but if you are running into any issues with ALM or any pro developer related things, you can always post it over here. Okay. Yeah, if there is no other questions, then we can end the session early today. Okay.
I guess that that would be a change, ending a
Yeah.
session and not extending.
Yeah, yeah, you actually missed it. But initially, when I started the session, I told that this would be a light session today because
Okay.
the last two sessions were really intense because we were
Mm-hmm.
going through code and we covered a lot of stuff. So I wanted to take a pause today to have a light session today so that we can start with another intense session. Next session would be our intense session again, going through Office UI and Fabric. Sorry, Office UI Fabric and React, which will be very time consuming. So let's take a breather this session and then get strong in the next session, and then be like with full concentration we can look at that session, right? Because that would be, I think so, I'm hoping to cover it in one hour, but it may extend.
So Danish, will it also? I know it would be basic, and I know it. So HTML. So how we construct the HTMLs into it? Maybe a brief about it. No.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you construct an HTML? Uh, Normally, this is the hover control, so not this. Um,
No, it's not for me actually. That's what I understood after doing this one, but before that I never understood it. So it's just to other for knowledge of others.
Yeah, no, definitely. So how do you construct your HTML? So if you're doing a basic control and not using React or Office UI Fabric, if you're doing a basic control, you always have to think about how you construct your constructor, how you construct your init and everything. So let me open up um, that folder first, the one that we were using for testing. Okay, so oops, sorry. Yeah. So here we have that control that we were looking at for field type, right? And then we defined this HTML elements over here, and then we added HTML UI tags over here, right? So how you add your UI? How do you think to construct a UI? So always think about your HTML, right? How would you write your HTML? If it helps you, you can even write an HTML file, right? You can create an HTML tag, create a .html file, add your tags in it, add the body tag, add your div tags, create your UI over there if it helps you, or if you can think about it, then think how you would how would you align your controls, like how you're writing your HTML. I always think about how I'm writing my HTML, and then based on HTML is what how I design my UI, right? So now I want a div tag, and then the div tag. I just think about tags. I don't think about my class names. I don't think about the like aesthetic or UX part of it. I just think about my tag. So I need one control, or I need to create a table. So if I want to create a table, what I need one div tag so that I can control my class names and everything. And then underneath that div tag, I can add a table, right? A table tag. Then I need a header for my table, or I need a caption for my table, which is going to be above my table, so I can add another label tag or something like that, right? So I think about those kind of tags first. Then once I think about tags, then I just go and create those elements here, and then I start adding the UI. Now I go in the test mode. So let me post it here. So I go in my test mode and I just run this test. And then it opens up in that harness, right? So it opens up in the harness. Still opening. Okay, yeah. So it opens up in this harness, and it shows the UI over here. Now here is where I would go and design my UI using um, developer tool, and I would say, okay, I need so and so classes. I need my padding to be so I need my padding I need my left padding to be 10 pixels or 10%, right? So things like that, I will add all those things over here, and then I will create a class. Once I have done this, then I will just create a CSS class, copy those style elements, and then paste it in my um, CSS class. But I always think about how I'm going to align my HTML first. Okay, so think about your HTML. If it helps, create an HTML file, then take those tags, go and create and go and create your HTML elements as a variable in your code, and then go and add them according to your sequence. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and don't forget to add it to the main container. Always remember this. This main container, that comes with as part of the PCF custom control. This container, you need to add your elements to this container at the end. Even if you have inner containers and you're adding things to that inner container, the main container, should get finally added to that PCF controls main container.
And why is I know when I was like, no, this equals this worked for the web API calls. That was so surprising.
Which one?
Morning I had an issue where I just have to put this equals this for your variables to be accessible after a web API call.
Yes, so we are going to look at that thing in React, but I can show you today right now as well. So sometimes what happens is whenever you go one level down, or whenever you do like if you're undone, so let's say I've not done it here, might have done it here. So here what I have done is I've created this React function. Now in this render React DOM function, I'm not able, I don't, I can't access this command because this is a private and then it is outside of that realm. And then I'm not able to access this this command. So what I did is I passed this over here as a parameter, and inside here I just used this as parent over here. So what Sudhakar was talking is when you use Web API, in Web API, uh, Web API returns promises. It's the same thing. It's an asynchronous call. It's how the new xrm.web API function you have in CRM. It's the same thing, right? So it returns you a promise. Now, because it is returning you a promise, you can use .then. And then when you are using .then, inside .then, you won't be able to use this command or this, yeah, what do you call? I'm not getting the word right
Variable.
now.
This
Not the
variable, the
variable, but
global
the
variable.
yeah,
Operator.
operator. This operator, right? Thanks. Was it Vikram? I believe. Yeah. So you cannot use this operator. So what you have to do is you have to create a where this is equal to this, and then you can use underscore this in your then. Uh, it's just the way TypeScript works. It's the scope of those things that are not accessible outside of the scope. So if you're going out of scope, then obviously you don't get those elements. So you have to make local, because this is defined on the parent, and then now you have to define a local variable to make it scope specific for that particular function. Okay.
That wasted more than a couple of hours for me.
Yep. You were just one call away, Sudhakar.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think so. We are almost on time today. So if there are no more questions, then we can just end this session.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.